If you've not been doing very well mentally, or you've been struggling with a few things, I think it's a video that you should rather not watch. This is not going to be a video which is going to be positive in any shape or form. I think this is going to be a video which is going to be my personal warning about what I see in the future, and also what exactly I think is the best solution to everything, because things are changing. And right now it's pretty late at night, and for me this is something I just really want to make, because again, I'm not dependent on YouTube. Just like other people who have to make one video a week, I don't have to do that. My businesses work fine. I don't have to kind of run behind this, and everything is on autopilot. But this channel is for me um way to essentially share things which I think people are also going to find helpful, who are essentially trying to just figure out more options for themselves, because I think this is what the world has become right now. There are a few things happening, and I think you should really pay attention, and that is something I want to essentially share with you in this video. I think the main theme about this video is probably like, financial freedom will soon not exist anymore, and I think you have to like understand like where I'm coming from. What used to happen was that, you would always have these kind of people, like in the very starting you would like watch videos from this Graham Stephan, and you're going to watch videos from this Andre Jake, and like whatever, like many different like finance influencers, and you're going to think, okay, like, that sounds great, like this 4% rule sounds interesting, that I'm going to like save the money and I'm going to put it to the side, and I'm going to let it gain interest, or like, put it in an index fund, things like that, and I'm going to essentially be able to live off of it after a specific age, if I'm going to live under my means, or I'm going to like only spend this much amount per month. I honestly believe the way things are going right now, I don't know like how long that is going to work, because to be honest, when I see the people around me, like many of the jobs that I'm seeing, like they are simply like ceasing to exist. Many of the things are getting automated, and people like who were essentially into this, like probably like, who did not want to like essentially put more effort inside and whatever they were doing right now, because they were not happy with that. Like not many people are happy with the jobs that they're doing, and that's completely normal. So these were the people who were thinking about, okay, we are going to think about financial freedom, and we're going to think about saving money and investing money so that we can essentially like retire early and we can live our life. I don't know if that is going to be something that you'll be able to do in a few years already. And this is the reason why I personally believe, like right now, I think it has become even more important that if you're able to like, make money faster, if you're able to like have a business, if you're going to start anything where you can do things on your own and essentially not have a bar on how much money you can make, because job is essentially a limit, because you can only make the money that you are making in 40 hours per week, and then afterwards you're not getting like paid for the added value that you bring inside the company. You are being paid a specific salary. Like if the company makes more, like you always make the same thing. So with the rise of AI, I see many people like essentially not needed anymore, or not needed in the same capacity. If you take a look at the graphic designers, if you take a look at copywriters, if you take a look at people who used to like write ads, make ads, things like that, a lot of mediocre people like definitely have gone. A lot of people who were bad at what they were doing are definitely gone. The people who are still going to exist are who are very, very good at what they do, and they, for example, use all of these different tools to get better. And that is also something which is going to be related to something else also, which is like financial freedom used to be related to one country only, right? You think, okay, like, I came to Germany from India back in 2016. I started my master's there, then I started my business, and afterwards I realized that like having a business in Germany is actually pretty shit. I think like having a job in Germany is nice because you have so many benefits, and there was a video I was watching of somebody who essentially was an Irish guy who was living in Germany, and he had a skiing accident and he was rescued by a helicopter. And what happened was, like, even after getting rescued by the helicopter, his total bill was just 20 euros for all the surgery, all the rescue, things like that. So I think for employees and stuff, I think it's probably nice. For refugees, I think Germany is a great country. Like, you just get money without having ever worked in that country. I mean, which other country gives you benefits like that? I don't know. Most of the countries don't. So I think like Germany is a good country for many different kind of people, even for students. If you think about it, like you don't have to pay a single cent to study in German universities. Nice. And all of this is of course then like funded by the taxes. But I simply don't believe like that this, like you can have the concept anymore about um, thinking about like living in a country or staying in a country for a very long duration. I think this is one of my biggest fear, and this is also something that is causing so much instability or movements across different kind of people. Now you might ask, what was I doing the last whatever many months, because I haven't made a video since forever. Um, I told you about this entire Romania situation which happened, where the bank account was frozen by the Romanian tax authorities, and just so it was frozen on 15th November, just for them to give me a letter stating that the audit that they did was faulty and that they're going to give me the money back. And that happened on 23rd December or 21st December, something like that. I got the letter from that. And from that point onwards, the money was supposed to come first in March, then in April, then in June, and then in July, I got the first money, which was 13,000 euros out of the 146,000 euros, which is ridiculous because I'm still waiting for the money. The money which is still at the government is completely lying tax-free. Now, sorry, tax-free, not interest-free. So I could be making interest on that money. It doesn't exist. Now, what I mean to say from this is like, if you really think that you could be doing like everything 100% legal and right, the thing is like, you could be doing everything right, completely right. Like your taxes are in order, your accounting is in order, your taxes are paid wherever you're living, things like that. You have moved to that place, all is fine. The thing is like, it still does not like avoid you from any kind of like a government overreach. Because exactly what happened to me can happen to you, especially in countries where like this kind of wealth is essentially not seen very positively. That is something that I'm really seeing as a problem more and more, like growing in Europe, which is if you're somebody who has money, you are essentially a target by the government because the governments are actually getting broke. If you take a look at any of the governments, like take a look at Germany even, like how much money they have been spending and giving out in Ukraine, like I find it insane when the old people are essentially like, sometimes having to dig through trash and stuff to kind of make ends meet. That is something I don't understand. Romania, if you think about the situation with Romania, because again, what was I doing the last few months? Dealing with this shit. Then afterwards, figuring out what to do next. Because Romania is simply not a country anymore which is actually good for entrepreneurs. It was very nice in the starting. I mean, think about it. When I moved to Romania, what was it, like 1% tax on revenue, and it was probably like 5 or 6% tax on dividends, something like that. So it was very nice. I mean, like if you have a good business or like you want to grow and stuff, that was an absolutely lovely country to be inside. But now, if you think about the most recent things, what has happened is the VAT has been increasing from 19% to 21%. The next thing which has happened is that the dividend tax used to be 10%, and that is going to now increase to 16%. So that means you have corporate tax of 16%, and you have now dividend tax also of 16%, and that is going to be a shit show. So I was like, okay, like, what do I do now? So let's see about Cyprus. Like probably like Cyprus is a good option. Like people talk about Dubai, things like that. But the thing is like, I also want to like move around in Europe. So Cyprus is not in Schengen. So that is something which I'm not so happy about. Like every single time you have to get your passport scanned and all of these things. Not very excited about that. Dubai is something where you have to spend 183 days in order to like establish your tax residency there. That's also not something I want to do. Like I don't want to like stay in a country for so long just because I have to be there. I like to travel around. Like most of the winters I'm in Asia, then during the summers I'm like traveling around in Europe, and that is a life I like to have and something I would like to keep. So I was like, okay, like let's see Cyprus, because Cyprus looked interesting to me. And Cyprus, you have 12.5% tax, corporate tax, and then afterwards you have 0% dividend tax. That sounded interesting. I was like, okay, like that is something which is doable. But just like the European Union is essentially putting all of this pressure on all of these different countries, Cyprus also buckled or will buckle from New Year. From New Year, things are changing, which is the corporate tax is increasing to 15%, and then afterwards the dividend tax is also increasing to 5%, something again which was Not the case for a very long time. Cyprus, on the other hand, is also the country where you saw there was a lot of like private assets and business assets which were seized at the time when the Cypriot government went bankrupt. So everything which was above 100,000 euros lying in the bank account, that was vanished. And most of the people like did not see anything back, because that is again not the money which is insured. So if the government needs it, they can take the money away. What I'm trying to tell you from all of this is like, I do not see like any kind of stability in the future. And I also totally understand people like who are not able to have kids or do not want to have kids anymore, because if you see how the world is developing, like to have kids, you need some kind of stability. You need some kind of like options. You're like, okay, if I'm going to bring this child inside this world, I will be able to feed the child. I will be able to take care of the child. I will be able to kind of give her a good life. And in today's age, I don't know like if that is really possible unless you're having a business. And that's why I think like for me, like one of the most important things I think you can do right now is really have a business. If you don't have a business, start a business. If you have a business already, make sure you can make as much money as possible with that. You can scale it, you can use AI, you can run ads, you can do so many different kind of things. You need to be doing this. If you don't do this, it's only a limited runway you have where you can make money, where AI has not taken over many things, and you're still able to like make decent kind of money and have some kind of options and build some kind of wealth while they allow you to build wealth. Now, if you have any kind of like, digital businesses or even physical businesses where you have some kind of employees and they're taking care of things for you, the most important thing then comes as like you will be able to essentially like move around. For example, the moment like Europe becomes annoying or something which is like not livable, the moment that happens, like you could think about Asia. Again, Asia, not every country is the same. Like if I really think about India also, I was like, hey, like everybody talks about like India being the next superpower and things like that, but if you like see the reality, like the amount of like surveillance you're having in the government in India on normal people, it is ridiculous. Like recently, they even gave further powers to the finance ministry that they are able to check the WhatsApp messages, they're able to check social media messages, emails, everything, so that they can see if somebody has paid their taxes or not, or if there's some kind of deal that they have not declared. And do you really think like that is only going to just stop at this like taxes only, and it is not going to use for further surveillance? I think in India, like everything is anyways connected to this like national identity card we have called Aadhaar card, and you don't have any kind of anonymity in India. I think like right now still, I think like you have some, but I think it's like going down very fast. How it goes down in India is going to be the exact same thing how it goes down in Europe right now. If you think about Germany, for example, like you used to have a lot of anonymity because of cash. So the thing is like, for example, you want to have some kind of like, small work done. You want to like sell something which is lying in your house. You want to sell it second hand and you get like 10-20 euros for that, things like that. You were having like simple transactions with cash. What I'm seeing more and more in Germany, which is like truly insane to me, is like the limits for taking out the money. So limits on cash has gotten absolutely ridiculous. I have a few banks. So I have with N26, I have with Wise, I have a few different banks. Now the thing is like what I really see is like the limits that you're seeing there is like 2,500 euros you're able to take out in a month with N26. In Wise also, I think like above 400 euros or something, you already start paying tax. I remember last time I took out 1,000 euros. On 1,000 euros, I paid a fees of 14 euros. Like truly insane that just to get your own money in cash, you're paying so much taxes on it. And again, there are limits on how much money you can take out per month. And the thing is like, this is the greatest way of controlling where you spend, how you spend, and controlling access to your own money. And nobody's talking about it. Because the thing is like, things always start in this direction. If you think about Romania, like, I'm just talking about like how limits changed. In Romania in 2021, the micro enterprise at which you were paying like 1% tax, that used to be like 1 million euros. And then afterwards it became 500,000, then it became 250,000, then afterwards it became 100K. Now, also, if you think about the special taxes and stuff, which is also something which was like not known to me, that is like if you have any apartments which are like above 500,000 euros, you're going to pay a special tax in Romania for 0.3%. Same way, if you have a car which costed you above, I think, 60,000 euros or something, you're going to pay also a wealth tax almost of 0.3%. And the thing is, like, how do things change? How do like things develop in the future? The way things develop is they're going to say, okay, like, this 0.3% becomes 0.5%, then becomes 1%, then becomes 2%, 3%, 5%, 10%, and so on. That's how wealth tax goes. And this 500 limit goes further down and down. So like that becomes 300,000, above 100,000, above 50,000 euros, and so on. The thing is, like, that is something which I honestly feel like is going to happen. And that's why I think, like, if previously, like, these were not something that you were like very worried about or not very concerned about, as in like what is the macroeconomic development of that country, if you were not interested about these things before, I think like you should really pay extra attention to this, because that is something that I'm also like focusing most of my time in. Like most of the time is focused on like making sure the business grows, the business is doing well, and then the rest of the time is essentially focused on like what to do next, like trying to build a crystal ball for yourself, which is the most difficult thing that I could even think about. It's extremely difficult. Like, I think predicting the future, like if you're able to do that like well, I think of course you would be very well off. But I think like that's one of the most difficult things. And I think this is also the reason like why a specific level of paranoia comes inside, because you're just seeing like things constantly changing. And when you're seeing things constantly changing, like how do you even think about like procreation? How do you think about having your own family? How do you think about having a child? And I think that is also another thing which is going to like really screw things up in the future, and people simply don't understand it. The thing is, like, we got a daughter last year, and the thing, like, before that, I did not like children, to be honest. Like, I really hated children. I was one of the persons where, like, if the child is screaming in the plane or something, I would get really annoyed. I was like, why are they flying with the child and things like that? And now you have your own child and you're flying in the plane with the child, and you see things differently. You're kind of more understanding for the other parents who are having difficulty in controlling their children and things like that. And they have to still commute with the public transportation, which is the planes and stuff, right? Like, it's public transportation. It's not a private jet. And what you really see in these kind of scenarios is that you have this entire population who does not want to have children, or cannot have children. Like, cannot have children is a different story. Like, they still have some kind of empathy to children. But the people who do not want to have children, they simply forget that when they're going to be 60, 70, 80, that only the people who took the pain of raising a child, essentially gave up their youth in raising a child, are going to be the people who are going to essentially provide these old people the services that they need. If you're going to be an old person and you're going to need a nurse, you're going to have a doctor, you're going to need a delivery guy, whatever, you need anybody. And these are going to be the young people, somebody else's parents, who essentially raised these people and made them into what they are, the functioning members of the society. And the people who didn't have children, yeah, they're essentially like enjoying the fruits of the people who had children. At the same time, that's the interesting thing, because on the one hand, I do not understand the people like, who do not want to have children, but at the same time, I also understand them. Like, that's what makes many of these themes so complicated, because it is not something where you can say, okay, like, I do not understand this person completely, or I do not understand that person completely. It's so complicated because everybody, like, you can kind of put yourself in one shoe or the other, and you can like make a picture and say, okay, like, I understand this person. But the world is going to be like completely different. Like, it's going to be parts of the border regions. So if you have like traveled across different kind of countries, you would also always see these kind of like border areas around the country. And you will see the border areas, you don't really have any kind of much business happening there. You have a few broken restaurants, a few broken houses, things like that. And there's simply like not much activity. And I honestly feel like if the way the things are going right now, the retirement ages keep on rising. If you think about Denmark, I think I was speaking with somebody recently, and they mentioned that the retirement age is going up to 70 years, and soon it would be like 72 years or something. And they're thinking about like raising the retirement age in Germany also, and generally like Europe wide. If you think about like Romania, like most of the people like who are working age, they're essentially leaving Romania for better countries. And how that country is going to survive is again going to be just this, like, which is like keep on increasing taxes till the situation just becomes truly insane. So I don't know, like, what do you do? Like, you could be doing everything right, and then afterwards the government just says, oh, sorry, like, sorry, did the wrong audit, like, somebody understood things wrong. They could just say sorry, and they could like really screw you over. They could like freeze your bank accounts. They can cause you months and months of pain. They can cause you like thousands of euros that you have spent with lawyers, but you cannot do anything about it. CBDCs is another problematic thing that I really see right now, which is essentially a German professor. Like, he made a very interesting video. Let me just check if I can find YouTube Spieltheorie. There's this Professor Dr. Christian Rieck. You should watch this guy's video. I think like he made a video in German, but it was a very nicely explained video about CBDCs and how exactly this is the video, digital euro. So they were talking about the CBDCs and everything, and like how exactly like things are going to function. And his biggest concern was like programmable money, right? So for example, programmable money is going to be something where you essentially like receive money. For example, you're a business, you're an online business, and you receive, for example, 1,000 euros from German residents. The thing is, like, even if you have a company based in Romania, and if you have received money from German residents, there could be a limit that this 1,000 euros can only be spent in Germany, right? Or for example, you're a private individual, you're living in Germany, you received your salary. If you received your salary and it's mentioned that like, the 200 euros or something, like from that can only be spent on groceries and is not going to be valid if the money is spent on travel, on alcohol, things like that, right? So this kind of like programming that you can do with the money, that like what parts of money is going to be spent and what kind of scenarios, that is going to be a huge thing. Or for example, the salary that you receive, you cannot take out the salary as cash. I think the war on cash is one of the biggest problematic things which I really see happening right now, even though Germany gets a lot of shit for this, which is like old people are only using cash, you still need cash, things like that. But I really think like this is the only thing which has been saving Germany for so long. That is like the older people like still use cash so much. Most of the other places, like, if the government wants to fuck you over, they will be able to do it very, very easily because everything is digital and nobody's using cash anymore. I still think like having some kind of like cash reserves is extremely important. What you could also really think about is probably like some kind of rare earth materials. So you could think about gold, silver, things like that. Again, I'm not into that. I have no idea about that, but I've seen people like doing this who are in this space where they're feeling a little bit paranoid about how things are working and they're not very happy on the direction it is taking. So I think that is an overall picture of things. Asia was something that we actually have been enjoying for the last 2 years. So Singapore, Thailand, Indonesia, Vietnam, we have been to so many places there. But that is also not exactly a place where the quality of life, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of like things happening without major corruption in day-to-day life and things like that, that's in many of the Asian countries, like that is not the case. You still have a lot of corruption. You still have a lot of like issue. You have problems with mobility, right? Like if you're in a country, you're just stuck in that country. My main reason of coming to Europe was the Schengen zone, to be honest. I was like, crazy that you can live in a country and you can just like take weekend trips to any other country and you don't have any kind of problems whatsoever. And that also like led me to giving up my Indian passport and taking up the German passport. So I don't know, like if things change, because like if you also see recently like how the German government or like how the German police has started the border checks everywhere, like every single time you have to enter Germany, it's a lot of drama. So I had some big problems with this also, like which got solved. There was somebody we hired to essentially drive the car to Romania to get the TÜV done and then afterwards come back and stuff, and turns out like he was driving with the wrong number plates. The police impounded the car. I had to go to the border police. I had to show all of the papers and things like that. Then I got the number plates back and everything was fine. But I still see like these kind of like controls have increased. Previously probably like it wouldn't have been a problem, but you don't know like whom you're hiring and if they're like, any good or not. You see the ratings afterwards and like, holy shit, like, that like good that this guy didn't steal the car and like run with that. So controls are increasing, and the moment like controls are going to increase on the German side, the controls are going to increase on Dutch side, Denmark side, Austria, Switzerland, like things like that. Like everything is going to just get worse and worse. So like Schengen zone, as long as I think it lasts, it's a nice thing. I don't know how long it is going to last. We will see. But in general, I think the way things are happening in the world in general, I'm not really sure like what to do anymore. And that's, to be honest, like probably not a nice thing that you want to hear from me. That is like, somebody's telling you like making all this video and they are saying they don't know what to do next. But I think like this really is a situation where things are so volatile right now that you can just make a guess. Like you cannot really do things with complete conviction and say, okay, like I'm going to do this and this is going to work out. That is very difficult right now. What my idea, like, what are you supposed to do next? I think like that is something you have to think about. So my goals, or like my personal roadmap here, is actually something like this. I think it's important to have options. So that's the main goal that you'll be focusing on. That is like whatever you're doing right now, like your life needs to have options. If you're doing a job right now, if you're making money only from one main person and things like that, what you have to do is like you have to see like what kind of options you can build for yourself. That is your main goal. And options really come with a few ways. If you already have a business and stuff, I think really thinking about like other jurisdictions, like what other countries could make sense for you. Like for me, like one of the countries that I'm like seriously interested in is Singapore. UAE, I am not a huge fan so far. I have been there a few times. Not really my cup of tea. So I don't know what to talk about that there, but Singapore was something that I found very interesting. I'm going to like visit Singapore again this time, probably do a company incorporation and think about like having a residency there and so on. That is something I find interesting. Malaysia could be interesting also for many people. I was in Malaysia. I think it's a pretty decent place. Not the same kind of like standards that you're going to have in Singapore, but like still fine enough. So this is for the people like, who already have businesses. That is like, you should really see what other place you could have some kind of setup also, so that like if the country where you're living right now fucks things up, like where can you move? What can you do? For people like who have salaries right now or who are doing jobs, I honestly really believe like having some kind of like side business, some kind of like second business is very important. And because second business essentially gives you geographical freedom. That is, if this does not work, you can simply take your brain, you can simply take your website, your business, whatever, and you can like open up a company in another country and you can essentially run your business there. That's the best way of handling things, because that essentially gives you like constant options. You will never have to worry that this is the country where you got stuck in and this is the country where you're going to essentially like suffer and everything. For me, the next goals that I'm honestly like considering is also like selling out all of the real estate I have in Romania, because I just think that if they could just say sorry and freeze the bank accounts and do everything like this one time, they can do it again and again. So that is something that I have to see, and where I'm going to do next, what I'm going to do next, it's very difficult to say, because right now the situation is still that most of the time is being spent right now speaking to lawyers from different kind of countries, speaking to accountants from different kind of countries, and figuring out what really makes sense. Cyprus is still a good option, to be honest, like till now, because you just have 60 days of time that you have to spend there in order to establish a non-dom status, and then afterwards you can like run the company from there, and that is not bad. I think that's a great option for digital nomads. Most important thing in any scenario is not to spend more than 183 days in a country, because if you spend more than 183 days in a country, you are tax liable in that country. That is something that you have to think about. So that's why also these trips, for example, like if you have a business, if you have an online business, things like that, trips to countries where you have a exit and entry stamps, things like that, that really makes sense. Like that also really helps. Like any kind of like recordings of flight tickets, all of these things, it's very important to like establish this fact that okay, like you were in a country from this to this place to this place. I don't know, like I know that like most of the people who are watching are probably already just having salaries and stuff. I think like if you have that, I 100% believe every single one of you who has a job, I know that you have some kind of expertise, you have some kind of competency, which you can also offer in a service form, which you can also offer as a freelancer form, or you can also offer as a simple business form. And that is something I honestly believe you should think about. This has been very good for me, like to be honest, like if I would have just thought about like doing my civil engineering job or something, I would have made probably the money in a month that I'm making in a day right now. And that is a huge differentiator, because I've also learned another thing, which is like if you make more money, you're essentially able to live out all of your life's desires a lot sooner. And I do believe there comes a time where like, I've tried everything, I've done everything that I wanted to do, there's nothing more to done, or like nothing else excites me in this area, and then you essentially like do not do much there. So then you can look for new challenges, then you can think about a completely new country, completely new profession, completely new business, things like that. And that is exactly the stage I am in. I think this is going to be a situation for more veteran business owners, like who already have businesses close to 10 years. Like my business is going to be close to 10 years now, and it has been running well. And for the people who are essentially like still just thinking like what they should be doing and stuff, yeah, I think like having a second option as a business, it's very helpful. If you have similar thoughts, or if you want to like pick my brain or something, want an advice, want to speak about something, you can book a consultation with me with the link given below, and I will see you there. I hope this brought some kind of like enlightenment to you, because I do believe that there is going to be just a limited time. I think like it's probably going to be like next 3 to 4 years where you can still make a lot of money with the help of AI, and then afterwards it's just going to get worse and worse. It is going to be just in reach of people who can afford very good fees for AI, for using the softwares, and for everybody else it is going to become more and more out of reach. So think about this. Not the video that you wanted. Next video is going to be something different, but a video you probably need. I'll see you in the next video.